They haven't let their nervous system and their physiology in general to recover at all. And then they complain, oh, I have this pain. All these things are manifesting, disease and problems and mental health. Of course, man, you're numbing yourself for how many years, like chronically. It's crazy.
All right, in this episode, we did a one-on-one with Theo. We went deep into sexuality, sexual practices, trauma bonding, the effect of AI and the role that's going to have on particularly porn and many more. Check this one out. Welcome back to the Blokes Lab, Theo.
Ryan.
All right, so today, we'll just go us two today. We'll go deep in a few different areas. So
That's it.
one thing God want to go deep in is sexuality.
My favorite subject.
Your favorite subject.
Ooh.
So give us some background as to why you've delved so deep into this and give us a bit of fundamentals about it.
Yeah, ooh. That would be a long journey.
Yeah.
So sexuality for me, I was actually very connected from a very young kid. As far as I remember myself, I was very connected sexually. And it was really interesting because I remember even I have a photo of myself, I think I was 3 or 4 years old, that I started jumping full of joy on my parents' fucking bed, and they took a picture, and basically I was literally having so much fun because I got my first hard on. And I was so happy and excited about it.
And nothing's changed.
Nothing has changed at all. That's how I view sexuality. No, but the thing is, I remember in general like being very connected with myself, especially like with my body. That was a thing that I have like definitely like a lot of memories and all that stuff. And I remember actually trying to explore myself like from a very young age, and even like with sexuality and all that stuff. So I feel my journey started like pretty early on.
Yeah.
But yeah, like a lot of us, like through lack of education and obviously like pornography and culture and all sorts of things. My journey has been very intense and deep and confusing, and trying to understand myself like in regards and my sexuality, which basically led me to about 5 years ago that I actually started like delving a bit deeper and all the stuff, and I got into Taoism and Tantra and all sorts of practices and all that stuff, and I started actually exploring myself like in all sorts of ways, and this is where I actually realized how distorted our relationship is towards sexuality, and how actually how much lack of education we have and all that stuff, and how narrow is our perception in regards to this very, very deep subject. Sexuality, like it's part of being human, so it's something that we really need to delve deep into.
And in terms of your upbringing with it, how were you educated? Coming from a Greek background.
I actually remember. I remember my mom actually had a bit of a more open mind in regards to sexuality, and especially for growing up in a very Christian country, and even my city, like the influence of Christianity was very, very big. But I remember like my mom trying in ways to actually like educate us and all the stuff, and especially actually trying to get us to be comfortable with our own body. Like that was something very, very important, and I actually realize now the impact that it actually had on me, the way she viewed it.
So how did she do that? How did you see?
I actually remember specifically like a moment where I was probably 6 or 7 and all the stuff, and I had this idea, like in general, like because obviously you have like, because of Christianity, like a lot of shame towards sexuality and all that stuff, and I think my mom could see like those blocks like starting to come through already, and I remember like she was holding me, she was hugging me and all that stuff, and I was basically touching her breasts, and I was like, ew, or something like that, and she actually influenced me. No, like that's okay and all the stuff. Like that's part of the human body. Like you should be, fine in ways. And I remember like it actually like I found it like really weird in the beginning, like just because of already like the influence and the block there has already been occurred. So yeah, like it was really interesting because it wasn't matching what I was experiencing even like outside and at school already and all that stuff. Yeah.
And you were how old then? About 7, 8?
I can't remember exactly, but I remember like the memory popped up in my head like straight away as soon as you mentioned that. Like it was something that really I was like, okay, that's out of the ordinary. Yeah.
It's funny, mine was actually quite different to the way that you got educated. Mine was more like heavily suppression, no talk about it.
Yep.
We didn't. Our families are very, very, very conservative.
Yep.
Anything, drugs, alcohol, sex, just wasn't even on the table. Yep. It was changed topic straight away. I remember I asked my mum, and I would have been at an age I should have known. I remember because my sister's quite a lot older than me. She's really like 12 years older than me. So I think I asked her when I was quite young, and I probably was ballpark that age. If not older, I think I was probably older. And I said, "Well, how did how did it come about with my sister?" And she's like, "It just happened." And I went, "What happened?" She went, just when your body's ready, it just happens." I don't get it. So it's like almost like it's luck. Yeah. And then I went to school the next day and I started telling the kids on the bus how it happened. I got fucking roasted.
You had a mistake.
and still, like, it was never. It was never for my mum or dad. It was never talked about.
Really?
It never talked about. And I went to an all boys school since I was 9 to 17.
That's crazy. Yeah.
Crazy.
Oh,
so you think all the different vehicles you learn, whether it's through your parents, through school. Because I went to an all boys school, they didn't really even talk about it. To be honest, we didn't have sex ed at our school either. So I got no education from my parents, got no education from school. So it's like, how did you get educated? And back then that's pre-mobile phones, all that sort of stuff. So literally it's just through other guys.
Yeah.
And
probably magazines, some movies.
Yeah.
Obviously some movies there.
Yeah, definitely. So it's funny how like so much of my upbringing was the opposite. There was definitely no healthy discussion. There was no birds and the bees. There was no any bullshit story. It was just like it fucking happens. When it's your time, it's your time.
That's
which is pretty funny when I look back. But
it was not that bad. It was not that bad for me. And thank you for sharing your story because it makes me reflect actually like on myself. It was not that bad. And I actually remember even my brother was feeling way more like weird towards sexuality compared to me. Like he would basically like we would be watching a movie and it would be like a love story or something like that, and people would be kissing and he would cover his face and all the stuff because people were kissing. Like I was like, bro, like come on, that's normal. So that makes me actually understand, like helps me understand that like my the way I connected with sexuality early on compared to my own brother in the same house was completely different compared to that's an interesting one. I feel sorry for you. Right?
I'm still working through the pain. So in terms of how would you educate? I mean, you don't have your own child at the moment, but when your time comes, how would you educate your kids, and at what sort of age would you have that discussion?
As early as possible, man.
Yeah.
Like for me, it's something very, very important. And especially for me because obviously I dedicated so much time and practice also, like I've practiced like for so long now, like to even understand myself and my body and all the stuff, and that way I even connect with women in that regard. Like even if I have a boy or a girl, like for me it's something that has to happen like very early on, and especially like for myself, being someone that has gone so deep in regards to the body, like the soma, and the depth that I have experienced like with myself, like I can teach my kids in such profound ways, and for me it will be an honor to actually do that, and give something so valuable early on to my kids. 100%, like 100%.
And learning it the right way, and without, because the only thing is, I know my parents were just protecting me from they just didn't want, they thought that's just how you have the discussion. But what I think where that led to, there's just so much guilt and shame behind having sex. And once I actually started, getting full stuck into sexual practices, and that, there's obviously, then I got so stuck into things, and then there was this underlying guilt and shame. So it's almost like every time you had sex, there'd be this subconscious guilt and shame, and then that just builds up and builds up and causes a whole heap of other issues associated with sexuality, the older you get.
Because that's the thing, if your primary driver behind everything, like it's your pain and your trauma and all the stuff, and you're not conscious about it, it leads you to all sorts of different, places that you don't even want to go, like yourself, And
that was my number one vehicle of numbing myself. Like truly numbing myself. Like you can do it through alcohol and drugs and stimulants, but like that was, I know that was like the big one that sort of, you numbed yourself from feeling guilt and shame through sexual practices. I didn't say you let go. I thought we had something there. So what about, we talked a little bit about parental sort of influence. What about culture on sexuality?
Well, like the thing is with culture, obviously, like it really depends, which place you grow up and all that stuff at the same time. But personally, for myself, the culture that I grew up in was pretty interesting. It was very conflicting for me, because what I was experiencing inside my house compared to when I was going out, it was a completely different situation. And I remember, like, especially in my teenage years, where your hormones kick in and all the stuff, and, you get, essentially blasted with so much testosterone and everything, your aggression goes up, and obviously you start seeking also, like, to actively, like, have sex. You are in school and all the stuff, and there's certain behaviors that you get, like, from your friend groups and all that stuff, and what you hear out there, and obviously, like, the culture is a big thing. And I remember, like, definitely, like, having a lot of shame, like, towards sexuality, like, during that period of time. I remember, like, even when I had my first experience, like, with a woman, where it was the day before I turned 15, my first time. And I remember, like, I felt, like, so weird. And it was a younger girl that I went with. She was 3 or 4 years older than me. So basically, like, she taught me through my first experience. But yeah, man, like, I feel like there's so much confusion and distortion and blog stalls expressing, like, yourself, like, sexually, and actually, like, understanding, first of all, what feels good for you, and exploring yourself. There's a lack of exploration also, like, because of the blocks that we receive through culture.
Do you feel like it's obviously we went through a generation we didn't have phones
of course.
Different things like that, so we had more culture, family, friends, school is what influenced us, whereas we didn't have phones starting to influence us, which now they're almost taking over. Completely. More from parents, more from school, more from I guess their friend circles. That's how they would interact on the phone. But how do you find that this next generation can navigate their way through? And being a parent, when you have kids through that generation, they're receiving so much information and the accessibility to whatever they want.
Yeah, I feel sorry for them. That's it. It's very hard. It's very hard for the parents also, like I feel, because again, the parents, majority of parents and all that stuff, first of all, they're not conscious themselves because majority of them, they haven't really done much work. Or even if they done, it's pretty superficial. And then, they're having kids and they're so stressed, trying to survive basically and create and support like the family and all the stuff. And especially with a family unit that nowadays, majority of couples, both of the parents like work, the kids are left, with very little guidance in not just sexuality, like to everything, all the stuff. And basically they receive everything through the screens because the parents do not have the presence, the education, they haven't actually themselves personally worked in those regards and all the stuff, so they can even provide for their kids in that way to guide them. So basically you have the kids left with a phone or an iPad or the TV basically to get the information that they're looking for. And it's, and a lot of the times can be pretty dangerous also, especially with how freely you can access pornography and all sorts of material and all that stuff.
Why is porn dangerous?
because the way pornography portrays sex and sexuality is very distorted and is very far away from what sexuality can be and is. It's a big problem. The way women are viewed, the way men are viewed, the way the whole the whole pornographic material and the pornography industry, it's so also dark in a lot of ways and has been infiltrated by a lot of dark energy. And I feel because of the need of people to view more hardcore stuff, more weird stuff, more this, more that, has become such an interesting entity in general, and the way everything is portrayed is so performance based and completely numb, and women are objectified and getting mistreated and abused in a lot of ways and all the stuff. So you can say a lot about that.
And how a lot of guys, particularly teenage guys in their 20s or even 30s, they'll particularly younger guys, they'll think that's the way that you have sex, and that's the way. And do you feel like more and more, even now, younger women, they think that's the way that we do it, and they get off on that sort of behaviour as well?
Let's say, for example, the guys, the way guys are viewed, in the pornography industry and all that stuff, you're supposed to always be hard and aggressive and this and that. There's so many stereotypes and all the stuff, and this is how guys think that they should be when they actually come in contact with a woman and all the stuff, and the way they behave is basically according to what they have, put inside their head, essentially, from all those videos and images and all the stuff. Which basically influences them in such a deep way that as soon as they go to have the act, basically, they access the same thing that they have viewed, and basically pulls them away from properly connecting intimately with a woman. And that creates a big problem.
And that's pretty much how, I was a late bloomer. I didn't have sex the first time till I was 21.
21.
Till 20.
Yeah,
20,
yeah.
20, 20, I think I was 20 going to 21. So, and I had, I guess when my time started, and then I made up for lost time, and definitely started hanging around guys. That was a priority for us, and that's how I was, essentially, because I had no guidance. That's how I learned. Yep. And you hang around guys and you all talk about the same stuff and, smashing and all this, and this is how, it's all performance based. And you do that for your whole 20s and start doing a bit of your 30s, and then you think that's just normal, and I could never connect probably till we did work for the last year and a half, couldn't connect with a woman. Yeah. And I think that's what you're really deeply looking for, connection, but you just keep going there and you perform all the time. Not all the time. Maybe not all the time. Give myself a bit of a, but basically, and you're looking for something, you just never find it. And your teacher is online. And hang around other guys who also, it's just the same stories. Of course. But in terms of with actual like dopamine and brain chemistry and that sort of side of things, the effect that porn has on that, can you sort of elaborate a little bit of that, in particular like the dopamine system and all that sort of stuff?
First of all, like there's so many hormones that we can touch on and all the stuff in regards to, that they are related to sexuality even. Because I think is even what we said before in regards to the stress, first of all, that we men have in order to perform, that straight away puts you in a state of doubting yourself, creating this internal dialogue. Oh, I need to be hard. I need to be in a certain way and all that stuff. I need to last for hours and all that stuff. I need to fuck hard and like all those ideas that we have actually we have been conditioned with from pornography creates straight away such an internal state that keeps you in your head and you can't access your body. And that's why I feel one of the reasons that we are experiencing for the past probably 20 years, especially so many problems with especially guys that they're experiencing with not being able to get hard and all the stuff and having problems with testosterone and dopamine and all sorts of things. It's such a, it has been created like a lot of ways, like even through pornography, because think about it, like in regards to dopamine that you said, like social media in general and the phones and all the stuff, it's cheap dopamine consistently. And depending what you are viewing, you're getting a bigger hit or a lower hit. With pornography, because it's so obviously like in a lot of ways like intense, a lot of the things that we watch, and you get big hits consistently, someone that gets addicted to pornography, you straight away, your dopamine system, it will suffer like massively. And obviously there's studies that they have proven that, and also what happens to the brain in regards to the gray matter and everything, it's a big problem. And especially because dopamine, alongside with testosterone, are responsible a lot for how you function, especially your genitals and all that stuff. So when you damage your dopamine system, your testosterone most likely is gonna suffer. But also the problems with cortisol, with stress consistently, it's a recipe for disaster. That's why a lot of the guys, they actually struggle, to get a hard on, and then you have Viagra and all the pills, that they are booming for the past how long now, almost 3 decades or something,
Even there's definitely the biological effects. There's the physiological effects. The effect, connecting with other people. There's even engages in more, that short-term reward system sort of thinking, which and you seek that in other aspects of your life as well. So it's almost like porn has the fact it's so powerful that it influences other seemingly unrelated. You become more likely to do just crazy risk-taking behaviour. And I knew I was like that. I was a fucking madman in my 20s and a lot of 30s. I could control it more so, but still, definitely. And I knew, the deeper I went into, my sexual addictions and women and porn and beating the meat and all these sort of things, and it was such a vehicle for numbing myself, and it had such a poor understanding of the effect of it. And then you could sort of now in hindsight see how it actually affected multiple seemingly unrelated areas of your life, where then you became, your risk tolerance changes and you engage in you just don't more of that short-term instant gratification. We even spoke, it was funny when we started working, how you said, and I never saw the correlation between this, like stopping stimulants. Like having coffees and C4s and pre-workouts, and I thought, I at the time wouldn't think how that's related to you seeking, things like porn or women or masturbation or anything like that. But
no, and think about it, how many guys they suffer from premature ejaculation also. You know, and nobody talks about it like a lot and all the stuff, and especially with premature ejaculation, it has to do like with your nervous system. It's basically your nervous system is so hyper aroused that you're literally already close to exploding. So as soon as you, and especially because you attach also your arousal to pornography, and you are viewing like hours of pornographic material, you're hyper aroused. Then you add the stimulants on top. Your nervous system is literally on red consistently. And a lot of the guys, they're gonna go with a woman and they already so aroused before they even go there, that straight away, as soon as they touch her,
Done.
I'm done. Like, you know, they can't even last for not even a couple of minutes. Like, it's crazy, man. But it's actually a nervous system problem. Because majority of the guys, they're so stimulated consistently every day, all day, that how you're going, it's the wrong state to be, first of all, to even have sex, being so hyper aroused.
And I would have to have, like, I would have to beat off every night before I go to bed, because my system was so fucking jacked from work and stimulants and so much on, and you'd finish work and you go home, and almost if I didn't, I wouldn't be able to, even though I sleep pretty well, like I had to do that every single night in order to be able to, like, you know, always release that energy just to crash the system so I could actually go to sleep.
Of course.
Whereas, and I would always notice, I mean, if I had more stimulants, I'd feel more need for these practices. It wasn't until which I didn't at the time even correlate it. I just thought, you know, it's just part of like winding down your day. But yeah, like when you really don't control your nervous system properly, and even still, when my nervous system's jacked and out of control, like that's when I feel like it. You know, the urges go through the roof.
And that's a natural act to do, because you're trying to calm yourself down by actually ejaculating. Think about it. Our ejaculate, our semen, is basically like we create life from that. It has so much potency. It's literally your life force. So imagine with a lot of guys, especially guys that they are teenagers and all that stuff, they ejaculate multiple times during the day. Some of them like a lot. You know, I even have friends when I was in Greece, and they were telling me, you know, because, you know, you have those conversations, oh, I did it 5 times today, you know, your friend did more than that. And you're like, how? Like, yeah, man, you're literally exhausting and depleting your system, you know.
My record's higher than that.
I don't blame you. I don't blame you.
And it's crazy as well. Like, that's one of those things that, like, if you've had a big night out, as well, the need for it. And if you don't understand how everything works, like if you have a massive night out and then it's a Sunday, I always used to say to my mates, I used to go, fuck, I used to always just feel like, eating, like, you know, Uber Eats and watching, you know, and just, you know, watching TV and just beating the mate. Just after being on the piss, because your body's just so fucked. Whereas normally it wouldn't be anything like that, but it was crazy, like particularly as when you're hungover, that's almost when it's the worst.
And think about it, you're consistently depleted also because you're ejaculating so much. So you're literally losing that vital force that you have. And majority of us, we all go through that, okay?
Of course.
And you go into this vicious cycle of basically numbing your nervous system and jacking up your nervous system through the stimulants, so it can actually keep you running. So basically, you're running in a depleted and exhausted state consistently, and all you do, you're using artificial, basically, energy from the stimulants and energy drinks and coffees and all that stuff, just to get you by, like literally. But majority of people, when you actually tell them, okay, this is what I do with all of my clients also. As soon as I get all the information, all the stuff, okay, let's go for 1 week with no caffeine or any you know, stimulants and all the stuff. And the only reason why I do it is actually just so I can show them what they're actually like running away from and what state their physiology is that they don't have the awareness of. Because as soon as you do that, people complain, headaches come up, I'm sleeping all day, this and that. Of course that's going to happen because you're so fucking tired, but you never allow yourself to feel that. You're numbing literally everything. And that's the problem with caffeine. It basically like numbs your nervous system, and you cannot address anything. So if you are thinking you are gonna work on yourself and you're still gonna smashing like stimulants and all that stuff, good luck with that. You're not gonna be able to do that, man. You're not. You have to take a break so you can actually let your nervous system catch up also. And imagine, majority of people, they do that for decades. They haven't actually allowed themselves they haven't let their nervous system and their physiology in general to recover at all. And then they complain, oh, I have this pain. All these things are manifesting, disease and problems and mental health. Of course, man, you're numbing yourself for how many years, like chronically. It's crazy. It's crazy.
And it's funny how, like, as well, like how many guys you see that are like real high performers, they work hard, make heaps of money, they do really well. They could be whatever, business guys or like CEO level sort of guys. Yeah. And then they have because life's so fucking crazy in terms of the pressure and the nervous system strain that they almost need those outlets. Yep. Like, like sex. And the thing is, that's why that's like part of their wiring. I always used to think, it's, because I'm very much like that competitive alpha.
Of course.
Male. Like I was always like, be driven with everything you do, but then sex was a big part of it as well. And I see so many other guys that they're the exact same. And it's just, I used to think, it's just part of the competitive wiring. And there's probably a bit of that in there, but like a lot of it's because your nervous system's so fucked because you're just so always on that you're looking.
Of course.
That's like one of the escapes that you're looking for.
Yeah.
To start to try and equilibrate it for 20 minutes and then it's back to where you were.
Yeah. And it's not gonna happen, man. Especially these people like in what we call high performance. They are the perfect example of literally numbing myself so I can be able to perform at that high level. Because think about it. They build businesses. They have to deal with stuff. They have to deal like every day with so much stuff, so much information. So the responsibilities that they have and the standards that they have to keep themselves the high standards that they keep themselves consistently. There's no room for recovery. There's no room for doing work. There's no room for nothing. And they're trying by any cost. They have only one purpose: winning. Literally, it's that culture. Like I need to win. I need to beat my competition. I need to, and that's how they operate. But guess what? They reach to the point, man, that everything breaks down.
And what would you say to a guy who's a highly motivated, successful guy, 30, whatever, like 35, in their 20s, it's different. That's in a very much a building phase. But say if you're 35 to late 30s to 50, and you've actually have accumulated, a decent position, and you keep pushing and pushing and pushing, but you do want to have a family and a partner and be able to connect with someone, but you're so stuck in that mode. What would you say to someone like that? Because I know my mentality was, I don't have time to, I don't have time to slow down. I've got too much shit to do. But then they think, but I can still find someone and they can sort of fit into my life. What would you say to someone in that position? Because it's hard trying to get a highly motivated, productive, driven individual who that's how they drive, and tell them you can't. What you do that's made you successful, we've got to peel that back a bit to open you up.
First of all, start very simple by literally taking one weekend off. But a lot of the guys, they probably do like a Monday to Friday, business or anything. Or even if it's a day, just focus one weekend on actually slowing down, removing all the distractions and all the stimulation and all the stuff, and actually reflect on yourself and every aspect of your life. Your business, your health, how you're having fun, like everything, and actually ask the right questions. First of all, what is my why? Where even my drive, where is it coming from? What am I trying to achieve? What am I trying to accomplish? Because if you are, you've built a business and all that stuff, and you keep going, you keep pushing and pushing, but you haven't actually asked the questions in the beginning, and you don't even know why you're doing that, there's a massive problem there. And a lot of the guys, they're stuck on that. I need to make money. I need to be more successful than the people around me. Like their whys are so wrong in a lot of ways, and their drive, it doesn't come from a place of, okay, I have connected with the deeper parts of myself and what actually truly means, like important to me and all that stuff. And they just keep going. They're stuck into that cycle of, I need to keep achieving consistently. I need to achieve. I need to make more money. And unless you actually break that cycle and you sit at least with yourself and you ask the questions in the beginning, then obviously there's more steps to follow and all the stuff. But I believe it starts from that, or actually consciously slowing down and asking the question for yourself. If you're not checking with yourself consistently, there's a massive problem.
Yeah, and it's one of those things.
Just cut there. Just a quick reminder, Theo, try and not say yep into the mic while he's talking. And then just one more thing, try be aware of the noise.
Yes. That's
right.
right. That's your hand.
Yeah,
You were doing.
What's that?
You were hitting the table.
You were hitting the table. That's right.
Yeah, just be aware of that. So one thing, just let him talk, and then just the bang, and then we'd be perfect. Yeah.
Thank you, bro.
All right, start again.
Yeah, so that's one of those things that particularly as like a high performer, as they achieve where they envision what success looks like, and they get there and they haven't done any work on themselves, how often are they actually happy when they're 50, 60?
Yep.
You know what I mean? And they've got all the assets and what they thought make them happy, but that's fine if you've done that work and you've done the path that and you've got that why you're aligned with it. But yeah, I think when that success almost comes from a place of like trauma or pain that actually drives that's when like the happiness isn't there.
Of course.
Once they've achieved where they think success or happiness would have been. So what about in terms of the effect on trauma, particularly when you're younger, and how that plays a role with sexuality?
Oh, massively.
Yeah. So whether it's actual sexual trauma, we'll go into that. Sexual trauma, whether it's
Sexual trauma is a category by itself. It's especially because I've actually I have seen and even coached both men and women that they have experienced trauma in childhood, and I've seen the effects on that. I personally I haven't obviously experienced that personally, but I've seen the effects on that through the work I've done with people, but obviously through my studies and everything else. And it's such a deep topic also to talk about, but at the same time, it leads to a lot of pain through growing up, and especially the way you interact sexually. It's very, very distorted.
How does it show up often in, say, men, for example? What are some common ways that it shows up in men as they get older?
Yeah, it can affect them in many different ways. It can affect them with being overly active and all the stuff, and obviously stuck in hyperarousal, or you can be stuck in hypo and actually experiencing no sexuality and all the stuff, and having very big difficulty in interacting sexually, even with themselves. The most important, the biggest thing that I have actually seen personally, through people, is that they disconnect from their body. So imagine in that, being really young in those tender years, and obviously having an experience like that, straight away it's so damaging and intense that the first thing that your consciousness does is basically to try and get out. So that's what happens. You disconnect from your body from such a young age, and it's all basically up here.
Do you find
dissociation, you dissociate.
Do you find there's a lot of shame and guilt around sexuality?
Oh yeah,
for those sort of people?
Yeah, massively.
And if someone has experienced it, because it's a lot more common than what people think.
Oh yeah.
It's a lot more common. Even because I used to for years think, I think this is just part of bit of naivety, particularly as a guy, I used to think, guys don't get. Yep. It's pretty uncommon, but it's very common. It's very common. And a lot of guys, so if a guy is going through that, and a lot of guys, there's too much shame and embarrassment coming out about it. But the thing is the pain is so intense and severe if they don't. What would you advise a guy who has he knows, that something's happened to him when he was younger, and he is going through a lot of pain. What process should they start to heal themselves?
They definitely should seek for support, because the thing is, because of the shame and the guilt and everything and those low vibration emotions and the way you feel about yourself, first of all, because especially even with shame, you basically, through this emotion, you believed about yourself that you are basically broken beyond any repair. That's what you believe about yourself. That's why shame is such a damaging emotion. And when you act from shame, see prisons are basically filled with people acted on shame. Definitely open up and seek support. That's the first thing. And seek for someone that can basically support you, coach you, or help you through this processing the trauma. Because the problem is, majority of people, they never actually seek support, and they just carry that pain all of their lives, and it never gets addressed at all, and it manifests in so many different ways. It's
Yeah, and you're right. Even just these are people, they'll carry the generational pain onto the next generation.
100%.
And they'll do the same thing to their nephew, niece, their kid, or they'll become ultra violent towards a partner or anything like that.
Partner or the kids, that's the thing, man. That's the thing. That's why, though we really need to start talking more about those things and all the stuff, so people can actually see that, it's okay, if something like that happened to you, and so people can start opening up and having those conversations. Because the more we keep it, into the dark, it manifests in very.
And that's why guys kill themselves.
Yeah.
This sort of stuff, it's and there's a reason that it's all generally around guilt, shame, and it just becomes overwhelming, and they think it's easier just to, if I can top themselves, then stick around. With people using things like social media and comparing and all this sort of stuff, and the vehicle that brings, and the nuance around that. What are your thoughts on social media in terms of, do you think it's in general, it's a dangerous thing, or do you feel like it's a positive thing, or?
Yeah. Well, like everything, it has its positives and its negatives and all that stuff, But the negatives outweigh a lot the positives. Obviously, you can use it on your benefit, especially if you are a creator and all the stuff. So you can create your business and interact with people in ways and all the stuff. But then the negatives, especially the way the things that they have infiltrated through social media, and the way we have been conditioned through that, from distorted ideas to what is passed on to us as normal and all the stuff, all the craziness that you see with gender now and all that stuff, and especially kids being exposed to all this information and misinformation a lot of ways and all that stuff. Yeah, without any, with everything being unchecked, it's pretty damaging.
I found personally, I don't know if there's no evidence behind this, but maybe there is. I found with Facebook, it wasn't so bad. It's once Instagram came, then the real shit behavior and Instagram fucked people up.
Yeah. What's the other one? I haven't used
TikTok.
Before that, the other one with the videos and how's it called?
Not Snapchat.
Snapchat, yeah.
I've never
Snapchat,
used it.
Me neither. But I mean, even that, that's the thing. It's crazy.
Yeah, and it's just, I think, the vehicle for envy, because Facebook actually generally felt like it was more. It was like the original connecting platform, which actually seemed like actually had that ability, when you actually didn't, the first connect people. And it actually did have a lot of benefit, and then it almost went then it just merged. Once Instagram came, it became the pissing contests,
a lot.
envy, comparison, all that sort of stuff. And in terms of I guess relationships and things like that, I agree with you. There's a lot of benefit for social media. I mean, I've definitely benefited in business from having social media platform. I've delusionally told myself when I'm on there for business, which I'm probably on there making 5% of the time for business. And then I've told myself a nice little story to make myself feel good about spending. And I'm definitely addicted to my phone. These days, that's probably one of the big things. I'm on my phone too much, and I do, look at things and. in terms of even probably before I was doing a lot of content creation, but like definitely since, that is probably my one thing that I think is the worst thing I still do is it just hijacks your dopamine system. And this is not even like porn related. This is just in terms of just using the phone. And I find my genuine base level of like happiness when I was on the phone when I first started, things started blowing up a bit on TikTok, and I'm doing, getting back and going through things and responding to people and all this sort of stuff and reviewing content and analytics of everything. And I found I was just on the phone so much more than I ever was. Yep. I found like your baseline, your happiness or your baseline dopamine, you could feel it wasn't right, and I just went, I've got to get the fuck off it. And I haven't like gone completely off it, but really had to make a big effort to, limit my time and go, look, you don't have to get back to every single, little comment, and actually have the discipline to pull back. So there definitely are benefits, but you got to have like guardrails in place to.
Yeah, because the problem is it pulls you out of the present moment, and you just look in a screen, and especially if you're just mindlessly scrolling, this is where the problem is, because it's another thing actually, like obviously like following someone that that you can relate, and he has great information and all that stuff, and you're actually educating yourself through your platform, through their platform. That's another thing. But when you're actually mindlessly scrolling consistently, and what comes through, you don't even get that chance to filter it at all. You're just having images, and a lot of the times what is going to be, it's going to be women and like all sorts of things and all the stuff, and it definitely has a massive impact on your mental health. This is another thing that people do not understand, how it actually impacts them, because unfortunately the algorithm is designed in a way to keep you as much as possible there, and you're staying there for such a long time, and a lot of the times you will pull yourself out of the phone and you look at the time and you're like, holy fuck, like I was 30 minutes or an hour there, and then you start thinking, what the fuck did I feed my brain, and when you actually start processing that and reflecting, you're like, that's not me, like I don't want to do that, But that's the problem. Majority of people every single day, as soon as they wake up, you go on the phone, you change your brain wave straight away, and you're actually put your mind in a state of seeking that straight away, seeking your screen. Plus also, you're not creating, you are consuming content straight away. So you're influencing your brain in a way that basically you're telling it, okay, for the rest of the day, that's what we're going to keep doing. Let's fucking absorb information after information, and your whole day is gone. Productivity goes out of whack, you're comparing yourself consistently, your mental state goes all over the place throughout the day, and basically like you're damaging yourself in a multitude of ways.
And definitely, like I find that 2 times it's the worst, first thing in the morning and then just before you go to bed.
Oh.
Like almost if you could at least have the discipline to cut first thing in the morning, not look at your phone for, I think ideally an hour or so, or even if you don't go on social media, you just look at, have your alarm and whatever. Like,
or wear blue light blocking glasses or something like that at least,
And then like at least have that as part of, because I found like my baseline dopamine felt a lot better when I wasn't looking at the phone first thing in the morning and just getting out of bed, not like I used to be like I'd still get up early, but then you'd be on the phone for 15 minutes and then I'd start my day. Yeah. And I found like and the other thing was then I'd have a coffee straight away, and then I'd get into it straight away. So whereas I found when I didn't look at the phone straight away, though sometimes I still do depending on what day it is and what I've got to get done. So, but like as a rule of thumb, if you're not looking at it for the first at least half hour before you actually do anything, and have a decent routine that, whether you have a cold shower, do a bit of exercise or journaling or breath work or whatever it is, that actually does. And even with the stimulants, I try not to have any coffee until 90 minutes after being up, and try and get sunlight, which is easy in summer. In winter, it's going to be
It's way easier.
Trickier when it's, I get up at 5 and it's still dark at 6:30. So I'd probably still have it, but I wouldn't have that sunlight, but still try and get some form of morning sunlight. But definitely if anything, like that in the morning just primes you so much more. And the other ones at night, like I say, this is a stat to all my clients, the last hour before you go to bed, ideally 90 minutes, try and avoid blue light. But that's like the one thing I'm like, I'm still like, yeah, because sometimes part of it is it's a winding down mechanism. And like, if you go, I'm like from 5 a.m. through to like 9:30 p.m. I'm like, fucking go. I'm like, shit, all right, I've got to get to sleep at 10. Or then I'll go to bed at like whatever, 9:30, 9:40. Then you go on the phone and think, I'll just look at stuff for like 10 minutes before I tap out. And you're right, before you realise it's like, fuck, it's 10:30. And you've done like 40, 45, 50. Then you go to bed and then that affects your quality of sleep, but also affects the amount of sleep you're getting. And then it's just fucking up your whole, dopamine system.
And the thing is also, because you said, like, obviously we're talking about sexuality and all the stuff. See also like how Instagram has changed like through the years and all the stuff, and it has become so much now. You have all these women posting consistently like almost naked photos and all the stuff, photoshopped, unrealistic and all the stuff, and then so many men basically like scrolling consistently, like, I remember doing the process even for myself, probably it was about 7 or 8 years ago. All of a sudden I snapped myself out of it and I'm like, what the fuck am I doing? And I checked my Instagram and I was following 1,300 or something women that I don't even know, just so I can check their photos. And I was like, why the fuck am I doing that? And all of a sudden, I'm like, oh, it clicked in. And I realized, obviously what the algorithm was doing. He kept giving me consistently what I wanted to see. And I literally unfollowed everything. Literally everything. I had to clear everything completely because you're putting all those images in your mind consistently, all those unrealistic standards. And then when you're going out to interact with women, this is all you have inside. So of course you're gonna objectify and you're gonna consistently be seeking, you're gonna have a distorted image of what a woman is. It affects you in so many ways, man.
And it rewards women for objectifying themselves.
100%.
So
that's why we have OnlyFans and all that stuff like at the moment, Yeah,
that's crazy. What are your thoughts with? It's funny how it's all blown up in the last, we've said it on like another podcast, in like the last 3 years. Yep. Like two things I've found have blown up a lot, and it's since COVID. Because COVID, obviously everyone was stuck at home around the world pretty much, which was just unprecedented. It was like such a wild concept to ever say to anyone, like, the whole world could be shut down. Like, it was just ridiculous. And then you think, like, you had so many people were out of work, so many people, just probably didn't have access to money. Then there's this vehicle, like, the two things I found really popped up a lot was, OnlyFans culture and sugar baby culture. And then, like, because they've both been around, and sugar baby's been around for ages. But like, I found I just couldn't get over how big that culture is now, and how men are like the simping culture. It's just like, and it's objectification of women, and then men like looking up to that as, that's like the holy grail.
And that's the problem, man. Like, because unfortunately, men have become weak men. Like, like seriously, the fact that they spend so much money just so they can view images of women online, I personally find it pathetic, man. And that comes from someone. I've never paid for sex, like never in my life. I've never been to a brothel. I've never been there. Like, legit. I had it as a rule. I remember myself from a young kid. I said to myself, I will never pay for sex. And I've never done that. But most men, they don't understand themselves. They're not connected with themselves. And they just like they are prey into those women, basically. It's so easy, man. So easy.
And like with webcams
and all the stuff.
Crazy.
Think about how many men they're actually out there sitting in front of their computer like every fucking day, and the only thing that they do is either pornography, webcam girls, dating apps, OnlyFans and all the stuff, and wasting so much time, so much of their precious energy also that they could go outside the house, the room, and actually create something, or even explore themselves, or even go out there and fucking hunt, man. Go out there and go and find a woman and talk to her, like, face to face. But they choose to be apathetic, sitting in a fucking room in front of a screen, literally like spending all this time doing what? Like doing what? And they're just wasting their time consistently, and they cannot snap out of it. Because you know what? Their friends doing the same thing. They don't have someone next to them to tell them. They never had a father figure to tell them, you know, what are you doing there? If I did that, my dad would grab me from my fucking ear and will throw me out of the house if he sees me again, man. Like, seriously.
And part of that as well, like with, I guess there's layers to it, but like with the father, because it's such a big generational.
Yeah.
I mean, we didn't have that when we were teenagers.
Yeah.
So a lot of fathers don't even know to what level.
That happens also. Yeah.
Because a lot of guys have got kids that are 16, 25. These guys are 45 to 55. And they're generally, a lot of them probably, some of the guys probably under 50 have Instagram and that, but they're not as onto a lot of the nuances of modern day activities. And obviously they're familiar with all porn and everything like that, but like the nuance of all these other things, they're not that familiar with. So they can't really, there's a lot of guys are very weak and they're poor leaders as fathers, but other ones don't actually know what's going on. And because it's, in front of their face on a phone, they can't control it.
As a father, if you don't know what is happening inside your own house, then you're failing, man. Like seriously.
How would you control it though?
But it's not about control. But at least,
or how would you be aware? How do you
exactly? Well, first of all, become aware with yourself. Like it has to do raising your own consciousness. Because if you are completely numb, disconnected yourself, you're not gonna be knowing anything inside your house. You're disconnected from your partner. You're disconnected from your kids, and a lot of men are like that. And the only thing that they're trying to do is basically like make money and go to work. And a lot of the times they try to keep themselves busy because it's such a mess inside the house that they don't want to deal with it. They don't want to put the effort. And what happens? Either cheat from both men and women, or they're going to separate, or and who pays for it? The kids. Consistently.
With back to like unrealistic expectations and online things and going to porn and stuff like that, the role of like VR and AI, what sort of, where do you sort of think that's going? Because that's going to really fuck things up, I think personally. In terms of in that space, it's going to be.
Well, let's say for sure the OnlyFans girls are in trouble because AI is going to get their jobs. That's one of the ways it can happen. Because you can see now, like even in the early stages of AI, you even have have you seen the deep fake videos and stuff like that? It's so realistic. Already, we can't distinguish between reality and no reality. Like, what is reality nowadays, first of all? That's the thing. And it's advancing so fast. It has been collecting data for decades now. Like, AI knows us better than we already know ourselves. Like, that's the thing. It's crazy. It's crazy to think about it, And
its evolution is exponential, which is dangerous.
Yeah. Personally, man, like I feel like we're in trouble. Like that's my personal opinion.
In general, even beyond the sexuality side of things.
Oh,
just the role it's going to have.
Yeah.
It's funny how it sounds like it could be such an amazing thing, and for
everything sounds great,
I know.
Bro. You know what the thing is. Everything sounds great, everything, but in practice it's a completely different thing. See socialism, see also like
socialism. That's one.
Yeah, socialism. What's the
equality amongst all? It's a race to the fucking bottom.
Yeah, man. Yeah. Everything sounds great in the beginning, but in practice, you have seen it. Like, it's a completely different story. That's why you have all these people. First of all, see all the people in Silicon Valley in general, like the IT guys and all these very intelligent people. They are people that they're so disconnected from themselves. So the place that they create from it's so distorted, and I don't feel it makes it right also, because the way they create and the way they view things, it's completely, for me personally, it's completely delusional, man. It's completely delusional. How can you trust someone that is completely disconnected from nature, from themselves, a lot of the times from in general from their environment, and they create from a place of think about it. Think about it. And you're gonna trust that person to actually tell you where humanity should actually go. And how to raise our kids and what's like. I find it crazy. Like I can't even believe it, man.
And they're the ones programming all this stuff as well.
Yeah, 100%.
So they program it with their vision and their
100%.
view of the world to and then once it gets to a certain level, they won't be able to control
They
that.
are the reasons that why we are addicted to those screens and all that stuff. And think about it, like their purpose, like they go to work every fucking day thinking, okay, how I'm gonna make my product more addictive, so I can make more money. Like literally, how I'm gonna hijack people's brains, so I can make money, or my business or my boss can make money. It's crazy.
It's nuts.
It's nuts, man. And you're gonna trust these people to actually tell you, yeah, come on, man. Like, yeah, nah.
It's crazy.
So yeah, personally, AI for me, AI is a big problem.
It's just so unknown in terms of as it evolves, and then humans are going to become redundant, and that's what people don't realize. They think I can sit around my house and a robot's going to clean my house. It's like, yeah, that'll happen, but then you won't be fucking needed either. And what are you going to do when you're not needed?
We're already cyborgs, man. Like straight away, just like that screen have made you a cyborg. We are losing our humanity already, like for so long, for the last 3-4 decades. So this is gonna take things further, man. That's my personal thing.
Yeah,
that's how I see it.
Yeah, and like everything that's it's got a hidden agenda behind the.
100%.
It's always going to get sold to you that it's this amazing. This amazing process.
Everything
you're
sounds
win,
good.
Everything's sort of great without actually understanding the hidden agendas behind a lot of things.
I can, bro. I'm a salesperson also. I can talk a lot of shit.
Oh no.
I can I can make you buy anything that I have to sell and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But that's the thing. That's the problem, man. There's no integrity. There's no and things are coming from the wrong place. It's a big problem.
With like all that sort of stuff in modern day dating, like it seems like, and I mean, I've been I was heavily involved most of my 20s and 30s. I've probably been in 3 relationships. So most of that time I was heavily involved in the single world and the dating market, and understood all the nuances of. But I mean, I came from more of a traumatized sort of place in terms of so how I ran things. But where do you sort of see like the current dating market in terms of where things are at with people, and like the integration, or even just saying just for heterosexual relationships of men and women? And do you think there's a bit of a concern with where things are at? Yeah,
definitely. Definitely. Statistically, we can see already like people are having like less and less sex, and again, you can break it down like that happens in a lot of ways. But I feel also like the online dating had a big part of that also, like massively.
In terms of where do you think online dating pushed things?
First of all, like just by default, like sitting at the comfort of your house and all the stuff, and having the opportunity to literally scroll consistently and trying to choose like someone, even if you want to just hook up and all the stuff or spend the night or like, it makes it straight away, especially for men. Because again, like for women and all the stuff, it makes it easier for them to date and everything. But I feel for men, it makes us so like apathetic and being so in a state of
like low risk.
And completely against our natural instincts, bro. Like that's the biggest problem. We're not acting upon our instincts and what actually makes us men.
You can just hide.
Yeah, like you can just hide and all the stuff, like put a picture there and everything, and just just for the sake of having even easy sex and all the stuff, like a lot of the times, you know. So I feel it has impacted a lot relationships. It has impacted a lot, like intimacy between people and all the stuff. That's a big one for me. And nobody talks about intimacy nowadays, because I feel it's one of our primary needs, and it's a genetic thing also. Because think about like being intimate, even from very thousands of years ago, like even on a cellular level, you know, like you have reproduction and intimacy, like it's a normal thing to happen. But nowadays, even that has been completely like.
Definitely.
Yeah, it's a massive problem, man.
And like the other one's just the accessibility that everyone has to people, in particular, the accessibility that guys have to women. Like, I think that's I feel like the dating market flipped a lot. Like, even for me in my 20s compared to early 20s, mid 20s to late 20s, once like Instagram went full, you know, because Instagram's the dating app. These are like
more than the dating apps.
Tinder and all that. They're not the dating. They're just bullshit where, you know, a bunch of guys just throwing dick pics out there. Women are just using it to entertain themselves most of the time. Most of the time it's absolute bullshit. And that's what you ask most men and most women have been on dating apps. They go, it's a fucking joke. I mean, I jumped on Tinder for like a week 8 years ago. 9 years ago, like it's in a week back then, and I went a couple of bullshit dates. Literally just wasted my time for a week. I said, "Fuck this!" Like I prefer meeting people in person. Until then, Bumble came out, and then like that was probably 6 years ago, or 5 years ago after my last relationship. That was on that for literally 2 days, and then you go on a couple of dates with that, and you just go. It's just because you're not actually connecting with someone in the beginning. That you know nothing about it. It's just like it's like a fucking interview. It's all the bullshit associated with it. You know, if you're messaging a girl, like, you know, whereas if you're meeting someone, you're meeting them and they can't, you know, zig and zag and they can't get their friends' feedback on it. But it's just like I find a lot of dating apps, they're just there like to entertain girls. Like a lot of these women, they're just bored and they want to go on there, have all these guys, who's funny, who's all right, and get amongst each other, having coffee and having drinks with the girls, and show all the girls all their different stories. And there's so much. Whereas, like, I find like when you're actually meeting someone genuinely, you know, actually, I'm a bit more old school, but yeah, I found like the dating apps are just a fucking like you will have the occasional success story of, you know, someone. That's another thing. In theory, it works. Like I think in theory they're great. In practice, they're fucked, and because they're just a joke. They're just a joke, and people treat it like a joke. I mean, there's just no, and I think these days in the dating market, there's no, like women have, I think back in the day it was more like guys would probably have the options and that would lead things, because now women get so many options from, like, you know, if you open a decent looking woman's Instagram up, her DMs would just be boom, and you get all these guys messaging, so they have all these options, and it's hard for them not to get swept up in the process. You know what I mean? And then you start looking at, you know, and even if they think 95% are just bullshit and they're losers, you get a couple of them, they're going to go, I like what I'm looking at. And you get a few of them, and obviously then there's the bullshit of like the way people project themselves on Instagram, and, you know, and I still feel that that's the main actual dating app. But, you know, and the unrealistic expectations and what, you know, people think they can get and what's out there. And, you know, you have people that are, think they deserve X, Y, and Z, and they're not even at that level themselves, and just the delusion.
The value problem also.
Yeah. And I think like, and that's something that like I find that's fucked at the moment. Like a lot of women are getting spoken to. They think they deserve like a guy on over 6 figures, over 6 foot. You know, is the 6 foot, was it the 6 by 6 by 6 inches, 6 foot, 6, you know, and all these things, and they want this, that. And this, I'm not generalizing all women, but there is a lot of women who are single. There's this expectation of what they expect in a guy. And if they're at that level and they're expecting, I mean, even just guys over 6 foot earning over 6 figures, do you know what percent of guys fall in that category?
Oh, wait.
It's, don't quote me, it's less than like 2-3%.
Yeah.
And that's just that. And that could be a guy with, that's just 2 attributes, just a bit of basic money and his height. What about his cock size? What about his performance? What about his charisma? What about his loyalty? What about his, personality? There's all these things, and that's the thing these days. It's just so much embedded in dating culture, and the bullshit is just, I want a guy who's this. If he hasn't got all that, he's a bit boring, or he doesn't quite earn enough, or he's a bit shorter, but everything else is good. So I'm settling down. It's like, you ain't settling down. You know what I mean?
No,
and it's just it's almost like this fantasy level of. So the top 2% of guys. It's great because they do, will have a lot of these attributes, so they can clean up most of the market that's reasonable to very high, medium to high value women. They'll clean up that market, whereas it's almost like the medium level guys almost treated like they're low level guys, which you feel for them because that's like they're almost like they're just invisible, and that's something that as we look down the future, there's going to be so many single men who they get no attention, and these are going to be the guys that go with the AI bots, VR, because that's their option to connect with people. You know what I mean? And a lot of the dating market, that's one of the aspects that's actually pushing those guys into that sort of space.
Yeah. In general, the problem is, bro, people are taking boxings. That's the thing, and even like everything that you were saying and all the stuff, it's all what we have been conditioned to believe that it's important to us. First of all, so people connect in such superficial levels, and they just try to tick the boxes. From women, for example, he has this and this, but he's missing like all those things. But what are you looking for? For things that who has told you all those things? And people are missing the opportunity to actually connect with each other in a deeper way, in actually connecting a soul level, so they can see each other properly, and then after that, you start looking, okay, can we grow together? Can we create something together? Can we explore life together? Like, that's the thing. But all they do, let's tick the boxes. And then they start having a relationship and all that stuff, and as soon as the honeymoon period goes, and everything starts to come up, they don't want to deal with. Okay, let's go to something else,
And the options are there just to jump on the next.
Always, like that's
for men and women.
That's it. It's an easy way out.
Yeah,
it's an easy way out.
And people are, and I found I was like this. So I was blessed. I'd always, when in my 20s and 30s, had options. But like you do, and you don't make yourself completely vulnerable, and you do sort of don't go quite all in with people. And I'm seeing that you see that a lot more with women now as well. They don't want to go completely all vulnerable in until, I don't know, whether a guy's, they know eventually that's the right guy. But in that navigating that early dating process, it's hard because you can meet someone you like, but these days if you meet her, she's probably a good chance she's fucking at least one other guy. Every attractive woman is seeing, generally speaking, will be seeing. There's some dude. There's always some dude around. You know what I mean? It could be the ex, could be guys. She might not be with him, and she can be open. But there's generally, from my experience in my 20s and 30s, they'll be very rare that they'll completely cut guys and just and start from scratch. And you sort of can understand that as well, and how people are all talking to. You're probably talking to 15 different people. You might be going on multiple different dates. And it is such I think navigating that initial period, because if you like someone and then boom, you like them and then you see them on a date with someone else. And the thing is, they don't owe you anything in the beginning. You know what I mean? Even if you really like someone, it's all in the beginning phase. You don't really owe each other anything. I think these days it's, even more so because everyone's disposable. Everyone's like, oh, that person's good. Oh, okay, now they've got this attribute, so they'll get rid of them. So I guess that's something that I've always found. Until you do navigate that initial period of bullshit, it's exciting, but there's a lot of bullshit associated with it as well. And really, we're gonna say.
No. I was gonna say excitement is actually the perfect word that you said, because people are addicted to the excitement. They're not going further than that. Even love, for a lot of people, they think that they've experienced love in their life, but it was mostly excitement, And as soon as the chemicals go and the honeymoon, what the fuck am I doing now? And they freak out and all the stuff. Because they confuse excitement with love and actually like loving properly someone, you know? And then you can go, we can go even deeper on that. How many people have you met actually that they firstly they are in love with themselves? And they are connected with themselves. So if you haven't achieved that even with your own self, how are you gonna get it out there? And that's the problem. The reason why people, because they have so many options nowadays and they leave it all open, is because they don't know who the fuck they are. And they try to figure it out through other people instead of actually properly going inwards and figuring things out. And that's why sexuality is such a big thing. And actually I want to bring it back a bit because we're talking about all these different subjects and all that stuff. But I wanted to really share something in regards to sexuality, and that's the perfect pass for that. For me, sexuality, from all the work that I have done through, you know, the coaching, all the different modalities and all the stuff, even plant medicine and everything, sexuality work has done the most for myself in regards to how I connected with myself, how much I rewired my nervous system through my practices and all that stuff, through my sexual practices and everything, but also at the same time, how I managed to remove myself from seeking everything externally and seeking even my arousal externally, but bringing it back and creating arousal for myself, and also understanding my energy systems, understanding my orgasms, understanding like basically how to use and utilize my body, first of all. So when you go there and you start playing with those things, it shifts completely everything. It shifts how you view yourself, how you view your connection with yourself and your sexuality, but also what you are seeking out there, you know, with women and vice versa. A woman that has actually done work like that, it's the same thing, because they know, they understand what is important to them, you know, like otherwise you're just in chaos, you know, and bringing energies in and out, trying to fucking, okay, something is gonna be good enough.
And it's one of those things, I think, if you are, particularly if you're single, it's a good opportunity to remove yourself. And that's what, when we started doing work, that was like, because for me, most of the shit that's happening to me was secondary to all the sexuality.
It's distraction, man.
Yeah.
It's distraction.
And I had to like remove.
Remember, what did I ask you to do? What did I ask you to do?
Initially?
Yeah.
In terms of cut stimulants and not beat the mate.
Well, again, you can't stop beating the meat.
Yeah.
But we said try as much as you can
to minimize it. Yeah.
To not minimize, to connect with yourself and actually see, okay, why I'm behaving that way. But at the same time, also, I ask you to try and hold your energy in. The most important thing was actually to retain your semen. That's what I ask you to do. So we can actually see, by holding your energy in and not actually trying to calm yourself down through that, what's happening and what we're going to manage, you know?
Yeah, and doing the, once we did that initially, then went into the 75 days of no, I couldn't be with women at all. That completely, of all my things I've ever done, that was like the number one rewiring process. Because like, I mean, I just, you know, not having that as a focus or a distraction. And even if I did meet a woman, like, I mean, one, that got me out of like going out to anywhere, like, you know, bars and doing all that sort of stuff, when I was at a point in time where I was like constantly, you know, going out and engaging in that lifestyle. And that got me, one, it was great for just refocusing me. And if I did meet someone, I could generally go, well, fuck, I'm on day 12. If I don't really like this person after catching up with them once or twice, because the thing is, I'm like, I'm not fucking in the next 55 days. You know what I mean? So like, so much of my wiring before was just, you know, hunting. And then, you know, or like, you know, you get along with someone, but it was, that goal was like, you know, the goal was to fuck, and, you know, and it was seeking that. And then, once we actually, went through that process, you meet someone, catch up with a few times, you're like, well, I'm actually not really connecting with that person on a deeper level. And even just in general, the way I viewed women was so much better. You know what I mean? Because I didn't view, like, in terms of objectification, I was actually weirdly just connecting with women just in generally a lot better, even beyond people that I was romantically pursuing anything with. So that was almost just I thought that was like, for me, that was the most amazing part of that 75 days, and that I knew I needed that like reset. And the thing is, if I did it for like a couple of weeks, it would have helped, but I wouldn't have, like, I had to go that full term to actually start to really understand, and that was like probably one of the bigger parts of my healing.
Yeah, it's so important to do like a diet, like I will use that term and all the stuff, at some point in everything, like all your vices and all the stuff, like women, substances, behaviors and all the stuff, actually remove them for a while. Do not engage with them, so you can actually properly reflect on the relationship that you have with that. Because if you use women as one of your ways that you're distracting yourself and all the stuff, and you had this kind of behavior, as soon as you did those 75 days and you committed and you could not engage there, and you had the opportunity, that's first of all my intention, what it was. I wanted to give you the opportunity of actually sitting with yourself for 75 days, not seeking the other sex for anything, okay, and just connect with yourself. That's what I wanted to achieve. So you can actually see where you're at with yourself, reflect on everything, and actually start taking action and shift in all the ways that you needed to do. That's why it's so important. Because if we don't remove all those external, this external stimulation and all the stuff, so we can properly go inside, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. And that's how you got also the opportunity to start connecting with yourself.
In terms of other practices, like you spoke to me about early on about being able to orgasm without ejaculating, and I had no idea, because I always thought the things were coupled. I thought you had to pull some Sting level shit out. Tantric for 5 hours of tantric with Sting. I should have asked him when I saw he was actually at dinner next to me like a few weeks ago at the UFC. I should ask him about his practices. Yeah, but like you talked about as well how you can, because I've never understood the concept of being able to orgasm without ejaculating.
Actually having that separation.
Yeah. So what have you done to learn that?
Yeah. So first of all, when I started, it was about 4 years ago when I was in a relationship, and I was in such a overstimulated state. I was doing like too much, even with training, with business, with everything. And I was at a state that I disconnected from myself so much. So even subconsciously, that was an attempt for myself to connect back with basically my body. And I started reading like certain books, specifically from Mantak Chia in the beginning. He's probably the most famous out there. You can call him a Taoist master and all that stuff. And he's written like multiple books in regards to Taoism and sexuality and everything, and how to connect like with yourself in those regards. So I started like with his book, The Multi-Orgasmic Man, which basically like takes you through a journey with all sorts of practices from Taoism. And I started going deep into that, and obviously like straight away I started like practicing with myself. And it all started making sense for me because I already started like my journey inwards. So I was meditating, doing breath work and everything else. So I was starting like bringing more attention to my inner space, and that actually amplified everything. And I will never forget the first time that I committed to spend 30 minutes by myself in a room doing this practice where basically you remove every external stimulation and all the stuff. I didn't have music, I didn't have anything. I just had some nice smells like candles and all the stuff, incenses. And basically the intention is basically to connect with your body and your genitals without anything else. So trying to actually create arousal from scratch, but also to connect also with your body without anything external. And I spent 30 minutes there basically you use oil, you touch your body and all the stuff, and you do certain exercises, like even with your genitals and everything, and you're trying actually to remove this attachment that we have, that you always have to be hard, you know, and the stress that you are getting if you're not getting hard and all the stuff, just trying to connect with your body in a way with no story, first of all, like removing all the story completely. And it's very hard in the beginning, so you can understand straight away, putting myself there, I was like, what the fuck am I doing? Is this right? Is this wrong? It feels weird, you know, because you're always, either you're watching something or, you know, you're with someone, you never really actually consciously spend time with yourself like that. So I started from that practice, and then obviously consistently, because I am as a person, I will put the work and all the stuff, I kept practicing and everything. And yeah, through those practices, basically, I rewired my nervous system. So instead, when first of all, you're playing with your arousal levels. So that's how you do it, basically. So you have like from 0 to 10, and you're trying to connect with yourself how aroused you are. So as soon as you start to reach around 7, 8, you're cutting it down a bit, and you're consistently playing around with arousal levels. Because if you go to the point of no return, which is 9 or 10, you ejaculated. Yeah. So you're trying as much as you can to keep your arousal levels around there, around 7, 8, and play with that. By that also you are extending also the time, because it's practice essentially. You are extending the time even when you're having sex with a woman for how long you can actually last, because you already practice with yourself and you understand your arousal. First of all, you understand how fast you get aroused, you know, like how long it takes you. You understand the sensations and all the stuff. So you're starting to connect with your genitals in a way that you have never before. And it's not that thing anymore that you're just going to the toilet, oh, I need to, you know, just have a wank and all the stuff and remove my semen. So you're shifting completely how your brain is also perceiving it. And basically through consistent practice, I reached to the point that I could actually have orgasms with no ejaculation, and then you're actually playing with that. So you have all sorts of different orgasms. You have valet orgasms, which basically you keep them, and it stays consistently like a valet, basically. And you can have as many as you want. So basically you are unlocking a part of your nervous system that is essentially laying dormant for so long, and you're connecting with your energy in such a unique way. So basically, you can experience so much fucking pleasure, so much more. Your orgasms can keep going more and more intense consistently and all the stuff. And at the same time, sexual energy is the most potent energy that we actually have. So you're creating so much energy from scratch that you can actually utilize on your everyday to-day basis, you know, with everything that you interact, because sexual energy is actually creative energy. You can use it creating for your business. You can use it in all sorts of ways. Plus, you can actually use it also for healing. So at that point, at the stage that I am now with my own practices, I can create energy and actually send it in different parts of my body, injuries or organs and all the stuff, and direct it actually there to use it for healing purposes. So there's so much into it. But, you know, if you talked about that like fucking 20, 30 years ago to someone, they will tell you you're crazy. You know, and they will look at you like, and think about it. Men 5,000 years ago could fucking do that shit. Do you even understand that? How backwards we have been as men.
But it's funny how so much ancient cultures...
Ancient wisdom, bro.
Ancient wisdom. It's like they have so many answers for what we need now.
That's it. That's the thing. When you didn't have technology back then, you were forced to take responsibility for yourself, for every single thing, and actually learn how to operate your vessel. You had to. You had to. And that's how all this ancient wisdom got created and all that stuff. By people spending hours upon hours every single day connecting with themselves, not with a phone, not with a screen. That pulls you away from being present with yourself.
For people who they continually find that same person, you know what I mean? They get a partner, they get the same person, and the same person, whether it's male or female.
Yep.
And a lot of like guys will attract the same women, or women will attract, you know, that same guy. in terms of like a lot of it would sort of say there's elements of trauma bonding. How does that sort of work in terms of in the initial attraction and the spicy part, and then how does that sort of work as a relationship plays out?
Or it doesn't work.
Yeah,
Because if it worked, it wouldn't be trauma bonding.
Correct.
No, but the thing is, obviously, like our pain body, we'll call it the pain body and all the stuff. People that they haven't done any work on themselves, it basically like when your body gets activated, your pain body, it takes you for a ride. So even when you're seeking for partners and all that stuff, unless you have actually done work and you have an understanding of your nervous system and your traumas and your childhood and everything else, it will basically pull you to what feels familiar from the past and safe. So if you've experienced abuse and violence and all that stuff as a woman, what are you going to seek from a man? How many women they go from abusive partner to another abusive partner and they cannot escape from that? And it all ties up to what has happened to them into childhood. Unless they consciously choose to change in the way that, okay, I'm going to work on myself and my wounds and all the stuff. I'm going to heal those parts. And actually, I'm going to liberate myself so I can consciously choose from a place of knowing what is good for me and not according to my trauma. That takes me for a ride, consistently.
And finally, before we wrap it up, for most disconnected men, which is probably most guys out there, to be honest with you, including where I was heavily disconnected before we started doing work, and still work in progress, obviously. But what's probably the one thing you can tell, most guys, the first step to start reconnecting themselves and start improving their sexuality?
Okay, so the first part is obviously seek someone to guide you, seek support. That's the most important thing, because we can say, in regards to meditation and breath work and all sort of practices and all the stuff, but you definitely need someone that has actually done it already, so it can actually teach you how to connect with yourself. Like it's very, very important. I was guessing in the beginning by myself because I never gave the opportunity to myself to hire someone to coach me or show me how to do it. And I test and measured a lot of things. But the reality is we have to seek support. And this is something that we as men are not doing and all that stuff. Because you can see all the information out there. You can see, okay, there's so many forms of meditation, so many forms of breath works. It becomes like so confusing, and it's so much information out there. In the end, you don't even know.
There's an inaction.
Yeah. You paralyze yourself from just absorbing too much information. So just find someone that has already been where you want to go. For me personally, I've spent probably now 15 years, because my background is also like a physiotherapist and all the stuff. I was an athlete, so that way I've connected with my body from a young age. I was deeply connected and all the stuff, even despite my trauma and everything. And I actually I've taken myself through like so many different modalities and different practices and all the stuff. But for me, I was always focused on the body. And that's why I have become so good at it, and there's so many different ways to do it.
A lot covered.
A lot covered.
And it's great, because that's one of those areas I always look to you with these sort of the work you've done in that space, because as guys, we don't have many mentors in understanding that sort of space at that sort of level. So many of us, sexuality is a massive part of our trauma, and if it's something that we leverage, to numb ourselves. So thank you for sharing that wisdom. There's definitely like a lot of things I think guys can do initially just to start that process. But, like as you said, I think definitely acknowledging that if you do want to improve yourself, and that's such an important part of who you are in terms of connecting with yourself, to find someone who can help you, who's already been there, not find some,
of course,
someone who hasn't been there, to really start to guide you and put you on that journey so you can connect deeper.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good man.